back to shattered homes a day after the ceasefire has taken effect. Now, across the enclave, long convoys of people are returning from tent camps to neighborhoods that have been reduced to rubble. Many are finding only the remnants of what was once their home: collapsed walls, burnt furniture, and empty streets. Meanwhile, Israelis have gathered once again at the Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, this time as the ceasefire has taken hold and troops have started pulling back from Gaza. After 2 years of relentless war, families of the remaining hostages are clinging to hope that this truce brokered under US President Donald Trump's 20-point plan will finally hold. Listen in to what some of the Israelis have had to say.
ימים ושעות ודקות ושניות מתוחות ומורטות עצבים. אנחנו נמצאים בסערת רגשות, אנחנו דואגים, אנחנו לא יודעים שום דבר ודאי למעבר למה שגם אתם יודעים. אנחנו כאן כדי לשתף אתכם, כדי להיות יחד איתכם, וכי המאבק שלנו לא נגמר עד שכל 48 החטופים והחטופה יושבו ארצה והחיילים שלנו יחזרו בבטחה למדינת ישראל.
I'm very exciting, very emotional day. I have even gossips. It's no words. I'm speechless. I'm looking forward to see all of the hostages at home.
Bueno, lo estamos viviendo con mucha esperanza. Yo quiero decir que también con una esperanza con cautela. Todavía no están acá, pero la esperanza está. Y después de casi 2 años de esperar, venir a la plaza, verla muchas veces sola, para mí hoy estar acá cantando y con tanta gente es emocionante. Y bueno, esperando que las próximas horas dejemos de mirar el reloj y que paren.
All right, viewers, with that, we're shifting our focus to the United States of America. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has laid off dozens of employees at the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention in its latest rounds of cuts, including disease detectives, high-ranking scientists, and the entire Washington office. Now, affected workers were sent layoff notices via email shortly before 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, informing them that their duties were now deemed unnecessary or virtually identical to those that are being performed elsewhere in the agency. The exact number of affected CDC workers has not yet been confirmed, even as the U.S. shutdown is ongoing. In fact, the government shutdown has sent hundreds of thousands of federal workers home, with staff at the Department of Health and Human Services, which includes the CDC, now being affected. That's not all. In fact, job cuts were underway at the Treasury Department, the U.S. Health Agency, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Departments of Education, Commerce, and Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Division. But the total extent of these layoffs is not clear. Remember, there are roughly 300,000 federal civilian workers that had already been sent to leave their jobs this year due to a downsizing campaign initiated by Trump earlier this year as well. But as the shutdown now enters its 11th day, Donald Trump has blamed the Democrats for his decision to lay off these thousands of workers across the U.S. government. He's, of course, following through on his threat to cut down the federal workforce during this shutdown. Trump has stated that a lot of people would be included in the layoffs that his administration has started, and the cuts would be designed with Democrats in mind. We have, of course, been seeing this back and forth that has been taking place between the Republicans and the Democrats. The stalemate is over the Affordable Care Act and insurance premiums that the Democrats argue will be doubled if the budget plan goes ahead. Meanwhile, the Trump administration claims that illegal migrants are being provided health care for free. Even as this political one-upmanship and point scoring is taking place, the shutdown is continuing. And earlier, of course, we'd seen the Secretary Bessent point out that if this prolongs, then the consequences would be devastating for the U.S. economy. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Shocking reports coming in. Donald Trump is now finally laying off several employees, federal employees, whether the Treasury Department, the Health Agency, Revenue Service, Education, Commerce, Homeland Security, Cybersecurity Division. Earlier, we'd heard Secretary Bessent, as I pointed out, claim that this would dent the U.S. economy. What, as per your estimate, could be the impact of this shutdown on the U.S. economy if it continues?
In this case, of course, originally the Republican seeks the small government, but this time, because of the negotiation between Republican and Democrats, Trump's negotiation card is this layoff. So that's why for workers, this is tragedy, but for the United States, it is also the damaged situation. But at the same time, without the budget, they cannot hire the workers. In the case of the system in the United States, the easy to hire and the easy to fire is common, even if the public official. So that's why the view from the American system, of course, it could happen anytime in any working places, even if the public servant. So that's why we should not estimate the impact based on the system in our countries. The U.S. system is a little bit different, we should think.
Indeed, and we are seeing this point scoring continuing, this blame game between the Republicans and Democrats. Several governors, including Gavin Newsom, have come out and hit out at Donald Trump. They've taken personal digs as well. How long do you see this shutdown continuing? Because neither party is seeming to come to the negotiating table, is seeming to relent.
Indeed, unfortunately, it could be wrong because in the Senate, 100 seats is seat and 60 is needed to go through the budget plan, but the Republican is only 51. So that's why 9 more is needed. So in this case, one by one, the Republican persuade Democrat politician. But it is not easy. So in the case of the emergency budgets, they have already succeeded the 4 more. So in total number is 55, but only for the emergency budget. But 5 more is needed. So that's why, of course, each politician has each electoral district and each interest they have based on their philosophy. So that's why the persuasion could possible, but not easy. That is also true.
Indeed, it's not an easy road down the line. And coming back to the economic terms, could we then expect the U.S. Federal Reserve to lower the interest rates? Because a lot of people are worried about how these job cuts could then snowball into people not just being laid off, but several others who will continue to remain not receiving their salaries, thereby reducing consumption in the U.S. economy. So in that context, can we expect the U.S. Federal Reserve to then step in and reduce the interest rates in order to boost consumption?
Of course, laying off is a sudden change the working situation, that's true. But at the same time, in the long run, anyway, the Republicans are seeking the small government instead of the big government seeked by the Democrats. So that's why the reducing number of the public servants is a long-term trend under the Republican government, Trump administration. So that's why even if this layoff is happened under the negotiation between the Republican and the Democrats, in the long run, anyway, the Republican will reduce the number of public servants. So that's why this is not just a short-term incident. Maybe it will continue in the long run, I think.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking some other very crucial developments from the United States of America. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that his administration will expand a federal law and order push to Chicago after operations in Memphis, adding that the effort would extend to other cities as well. Meanwhile, as some 500 troops have started their deployment near Chicago, protesters have gathered outside an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Illinois, clashing with police and chanting slogans in opposition to Trump's immigration policies. The police, armed with batons, have pushed back demonstrators attempting to block the facility's entrance, arresting several of the protesters who are demonstrating on the streets. Meanwhile, these activists have ignored warnings to stay off the roadway, with some donning tear gas masks and raising fists in defiance. Democratic senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin have joined protesters in Illinois. Durbin has in fact criticized Trump's migration policy, stating that this is not America. Listen in.
People are being arrested are not guilty of any crimes. 70% of those who have been arrested so far have no criminal record, none. You saw what happened at 2200 South Shore apartment building just a few days ago. It was a terrible thing in the middle of the night to raid the building with helicopters, which my colleague knows a lot more about that than I ever will. The people rappelling out of those helicopters and breaking down the doors of people's homes and dragging the women and children out into the night, into the darkness, with their hands tied behind them. That isn't America. And if Donald Trump thinks he is making America safer by doing that, he's wrong.
Still with us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo. We've been seeing the deployment of the National Guard in Tennessee, I beg your pardon, in Memphis, and meanwhile, the governor is Republican and he's supported this particular move. That's not all. We're also, in fact, seeing similar such deployments to Chicago, although there was a ruling recently that prohibited the Trump administration from doing so, that put a stay on the Trump administration's attempts to do so. Similar ruling was also given as far as the situation in Portland in Oregon is concerned. Could we then, in fact, expect further legal action to take place against the Trump administration, and could this even escalate to the point that it heads to the U.S. Supreme Court down the line?
Yes, this situation is indeed based on the left versus right in the U.S. domestic politics. So that's why without some certain trust between between the Republican and the Democrats, it will not solve. And recently, Trump versus anti-Trump, something the rift between two groups are very deep now. So that's why it is not easy to expect such kind of the situation will end soon. Maybe it will continue a more wider area. It will continue, I think. So central government is right and local government is left, and trust between two is not exist. Unfortunately, that is true, I think.
Indeed, as you pointed out, there is a trust deficit that exists, and Trump seems to be playing into his very vociferously backing MAGA voter base while doing so. Though we have seen certain people come out and state that he's going beyond his limits, that what he's doing is an overreach. In fact, Trump had earlier threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act. In this context, what he's doing justified, or is it an overreach?
Justify itself is possible, I believe, because central government intervenes the law and order situation in the local area is under some certain situation. It is possible legally. So the problem is mistrust between the central government and local government in this case. But in the law and order, the organization of the police or National Guard, maybe there is a possibility in the area they cooperate each other, I think. So that's why this is not Republican or Democrat between the police and the National Guard. Maybe they are not a political color. They do not have the political color. Maybe they try to cooperate each other, I think. So politics is politics, and police or National Guard cooperation is another thing, I believe.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus towards some